Hello everybody, welcome into the HobbyBarr. This is Jason, and welcome. On today's episode we'll be continuing this Gossamer Air Sorceress from Reaper Miniatures, and we'll be continuing to layer up, get her closer to completion. If you do any hobbying yourself, feel free to join along, and hobby along with. So first off, we are going to be getting some Citadel Leadbelcher onto the blade of the mini. Kind of figured it's time to get that little dagger she has in her hands painted up and get the metallics done. Of course, I had to start out doing the metallics, so that's fun. Really didn't make too big of a difference though in the grand scheme of things. Some people would say don't do that, should have cleaned out your water pot and all that, but it's fine. Doesn't make too big of a difference in all honesty to me. But yeah, go ahead and get the Leadbelcher onto the knife, and then I also wanted to pick out the couple of rings on her arms. Since the sleeve I'm leaving as the basic like blouse color, needed to it looks like she has a couple of I guess bangles around her arm, one up at her wrist and one down closer to her shoulder, so wanted to pick those out with the Leadbelcher as well, and we'll go ahead and get those all sorted out and picked out in the metallic paint. One thing I did want to go over as we are continuing on towards the next paint, figured to make it easier on myself and just for some variety and try different things, wouldn't add as much music in for the background. If you want to bring up your own soundtrack for the video, that's fine and understandable. Otherwise, kind of want to just leave it a chill one this time, see how it goes. And figure, go back to fast forwarding to go through parts. There's going to be a few cuts and a few moments skipped, but we'll try it, see how it goes. But yeah, I'll catch up with you all on the next paint then. Next up, we are going to try some of these Cephalopod Studios orange wash. Wanted to give it a shot over the copper, to give it a little bit more depth to the color. Figure it would work better than going with the red wash or the or any other color. Just to kind of keep it coppery looking copper. Kind of accidentally get it into some of the blue areas, so I might have to go back and pick those out. But that's okay. But we'll go ahead and get the little urn covered in this stuff to pick out help some of the details stand out, and then we'll have to come back in here with the metallic color, but that's alright. It'll be fine. But we'll go ahead and get that taken care of, and we'll move on to the next one. As we're fast forwarding, this episode will have a lot of different colors coming up because as we're moving towards finalizing the model, it tend to move around a lot between colors. A lot more than just getting the basic base coats down, so we'll go ahead and have a lot of colors to chug through here. But see you in a bit. Alrighto, for the next color, kind of gonna commit one of the cardinal sins of painting and go back over areas that I feel are good enough. That's because I noticed what could be part of the skirt wasn't painted. There was still a white spot under the tucked away in there, behind that scroll on her front. So I'm gonna use some of the Cuttlefish colors, Femme Fatale Violet. and go in there for the shadows, since that red will be in the shadows pretty well. And while I was at it, I was like, well, since I have the paint out, I'm going to go ahead and apply this to the shadows of other creases in the dress and go back over the dress with more paint. So I'll be going back through the whole thing and hitting different areas of the dress. Looking back, probably shouldn't have done it. It killed a lot more time than I needed, and I was pretty happy with where the way the dress was, where the dress was at already. I'm still happy with how it turned out, but I feel it was more effort than I really needed to put into it for minimal improvement, personally. But yeah, we'll go ahead and get this sort of purplish paint down for the shadows on the red, and we'll move on to the next one here in a little bit. Alrighty, since we are going back over the colors again, I needed to build back up the red color after putting the Femme Fatale violet down, so we're now on to Cuttlefish's Harlot Red again to give me a sort of mid-tone between the recesses where I put the violet and the highlight where I'm going to put the Crawdaddy Red. So right now we're on Harlot Red, just sort of in between that purple and red spectrum, and it'll be the mid-tone of the dress. But just working on building up the colors in areas again, since I wanted to re-attack that again. The end though, I'm still happy with the result, but I feel like it's time I didn't really need to spend on it, looking back on it. But we'll just keep on chugging along, get this thing closer to completion, and move on to the next project. Which, not quite sure what it'll be yet, but we'll figure that out when we get there. Anyway, catch up with you all on the next page. Alrighto, we're back to Cuttlefish Colors Crawdaddy Red. To pick out the highlights here. Again, this is after we've built it back up from purple, because I noticed a white spot between that, a spot of primer, I should say, between the scroll and her cloak. Started with Femme Fatale Violet, and then I decided, you know what, we'll go all over the dress again and redo it. Yeah, so we're back on the highlight color of Crawdaddy Red. Overall, with this experimentation of cuttlefish colors, it's been going really well. But, yeah, been playing with it on other models too, off recording, and I'm pretty happy with them overall. But, gotta keep this moving, so we'll go ahead and let the recording speed up and move on to the next color. Alrighto, now we are moving on to Vallejo Gaming Black. Needed to use it to pick out some of the border for the dress part, and pick out the rope on the urn. Need to get those done, so broke back out the ink for it. I tend to like using the inks for, especially the black game ink, or black ink for just putting down a black base coat on things. Since it's a very thin paint, it's but high pigment, it works really well for that purpose. This way it goes on nice and thin, nice and smooth, and doesn't build up too much texture. I also decided to pick out the pouch that I never got around to, so we'll go ahead and base coat that black and figure out something else to make that little pouch on her hip stand out a bit more. But we'll go ahead and get the cord on the urn, the last little bits around her waist done up in the with the black ink, and then we'll move on to the next color. So I'll see y'all in a bit. Alrighto, we are now moving on to Vallejo's gaming line, the yellow ink. I wasn't really happy with the leaves on the back, on the cloak, so I wanted to kind of see if I can make them orange by just layering some yellow ink on top of the red ink. Sadly, it didn't really turn out how I wanted. I'll have to figure out something else for it, which I might just break out some various Citadel paints at this point and have at them. But well, I wanted to experiment a bit with them, see if I can get the effect I wanted out of it. But sadly I didn't. Anyway, you can see it all on the next paint here in a little bit. Alrighto, we are back to using the Army Painter True Copper here to kind of retouch up some of the raised portions on the urn after the orange wash came in and knocked it down. But then, after we do this, we're going to quickly transition on to picking out highlights on the various copper parts. And that'll be done with the Vallejo polished gold, actually. Yeah, I put gold on top of the copper here. And speaking of which, moving on to that right now. I wanted it to be really shiny copper, so that's why I'm using the gold over it, kind of keeping the layers relatively thin. This way it still gives it that slight bit of gold metallic on the end, but it doesn't overpower it and make it look gold. So gives it some variance in how it looks. So I hit the dagger there, and now I'm hitting the urn. Then I should also be putting some on the icon that's on the scroll around her waist. There's a little, like, shield-shaped icon there, so I go ahead and put some gold on that too, just to make it pop and stand out a bit more from the rest of it. Though it looks like I'm applying it kind of heavily, I'm basically treating it like a dry brush for the metallic. So I'm actually not putting a lot of gold on. I guess some might call it an overbrush technique or something. But it's very similar to dry brushing. Just a light amount of paint on the brush and going over it real fast. Anyway, with that, I'll see y'all on the next color. Alright, we are getting towards the end of this model, so I wanted to start working on the base color. So for this, I broke out the Citadel Dryad Bark to base coat the rocks and the base with. I'm not sure what I'll do for the base exactly. I'm thinking using some Agrelian earth over the non-mini part of the base. So where I'm painting the dry bark right now, just the plastic part of the base. This is a metal mini, so the raised portions I'm thinking of going back over with a gray and building it more into a stone color. This way she's standing on a couple rocks that are there in sort of a broken up desert sort of look. I think that's what I'll do. Just because I didn't go in with like green stuff or anything and smooth out the transition between the dirt she's standing on and the base itself. So I think I'll just make those raised up rocks, and I think I'll go with it that way. I think it'll work fine. But we'll go ahead and finish up base coating everything here with Dryad Bark, because I wasn't sure when I first started what I would do for the raised rocks and stuff. But it should be fine that they're base coated in the dark brown and then given a wash over them. I should be able to still build it up into more of a rocky gray to deserty sandstone kind of appearance just fine. But with that, we'll go ahead and speed through the rest of this and catch up with you all on the next bit. Alrighto, for this, we are going to be using the Army Painter Quick Shade Strong Tone. Supposedly Strong Tone is what you can use in place of good old Agrax Earthshade. So, since I haven't gotten to try it yet, I wanted to give it a shot over the Dryad Bark. Still seems to dry a little glossy, which I can take down with a matte varnish if I cared. But this is just gonna appear through the cracks that the Agrelian Earth will leave. or a Grelin Earth Lily, so I'm not really too picky about the shininess coming through. In fact, it might make it a little more interesting for the base. But I wanted to put it on the rocks and the base texture on the base, so we'll go ahead and get that applied and move on to the next bit. Alright, for the last little bits of picking out details, wanted to give the blade something different. I didn't want to just wash it and go back over it with metallic. It's more of a magical sort of implement to me, so I grabbed the Cuttlefish Colors Poor Boy Denim that I have, since while experimenting I found out that it works really well as sort of a layering paint. So a paint that you build up to the color, you don't just have the color, like sort of Citadel base paints where they're very dense and stuff like that. So I want to put this on there, sort of make it look a little magical with how I was doing it, make it a magic dagger. So started out with the Poor Boy Denim. The effect was a little too subtle to me, like when I had the dagger, when I was doing the arm's reach test. It kind of didn't stand out much, so go ahead and be working on that a little bit more here with the next color. So next, we break out the Will-O-Wisp Blue, and with this, I decided to kind of go back and forth a bit between the two colors, because this started to become a more delicate process, but I wanted the Will-O-Wisp Blue along the very edge of the blade. Looking back, I kind of could have made a mid-color by mixing the two together. This way I could have a transition from broader areas of the Poor Boy Denim being built up, and then have the mid-tone, sort of a mid-color between that, and then the just fine highlight of the Will-O-Wisp Blue. But I was experimenting, so I decided to more or less edge highlight with the Will-O-Wisp Blue, and kind of helps make things stand out a bit on the dagger. Not super happy with how I applied the effect, and turning the model around, I should have applied it to the back of the dagger as well, but stuff for next time, when we finish her up, then figure out what to work on next. I'm thinking of going back to the 40k minis, or Warhammer stuff, so either a Knight Zephyros, or we might break out I believe they're called the Clamavis from the Gene Stealer cults. Work on him. Work on one of those two next, I feel. This way I can play around with some of the colors a bit more and get stuff done. After them I might do a Sister of Battle. This way I can play with some of those Turbo Dork paints again. But with that, we'll be speeding through the rest of this, so I'll catch up with you all on the next bit. So finally we move on to Siren Green. I wanted sort of a shade color to put on the pouch there on her waist, just to give it a little more color depth. But I ended up putting it too close to the edge of the palette paper, and it started to get down into the sponge and the rest of the water, so I kind of needed to work quick here and just base coat it and move on. So that's all that happened with that color. With that, we're at the last call, everyone. So she's coming along. She's just about done. Figure out how to finish up the base here, and we'll move on to the next mini. And with that, hope you all have a great day. Have a good one out there. Take care.